Good afternoon, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today, special edition with me, Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. BlenderHD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. We'll be talking all about March Madness, bracket strategy. How do you win your bracket if you're playing against 10 people, 100 people, a million people? How do you get that big prize? And joining me, the college basketball experts here, because I know nothing. I know Cooper Flagg's a player, and I think that's it. I think that's all I know about college basketball. And we're joined by Eric Vimefor and John Schiller to break it all down before the first games start. Even though we got baseball today, I didn't even realize that. We got baseball in Japan, and already Freddie Freeman got scratched. So hopefully he didn't play him. I'll play the stupid person. I'll play I don't know anything about college basketball. Yet, back in my day, I used to win, the bracket challenges all the time with my friends. And, in the poker club, we get 20, 30 people together. So I maybe a little bit more on the game theory side. But you guys know everything about college basketball. When people see a bracket challenge, like, oh, pick your bracket, pick it, because offices, everyone gets involved. You have your wife picks based on the color of the jerseys. I mean, whatever, everyone gets involved. I would think the two variables that you need to care about the most when it comes to like how you fill out your brackets is the size of your pool and the scoring system. Am I missing anything else?
I don't think so.
You'd also like to know who is picking who. If you're in a pool with a lot of Duke fans, you can imagine most of them are probably going to have Duke as the title favorite, and that would probably make Duke a poor pick in your pool.
Okay, so there is some type of like ownership leverage, very similar to DFS, and that could exist in your pool.
Absolutely.
Okay,
there's some. I'll just add to that. There's already, some of that stuff out there, right? You can find on whether it's Yahoo, CBS, ESPN, whatever you use. A lot of them put out the percentage of each team being picked. It's an okay proxy, but like John said, kind of adjusting for kind of the combination of what you both said, right? Kind of adjusting for understanding who you're competing against, right? Are you playing in the huge monster ESPN one? Or are you playing with your Duke buddies or your Michigan State buddies or whatever? And then, kind of running, there's some pretty, basic relevant data out there to see, about odds to make the Final Four, odds to make the championship, odds to win each game, and then kind of comparing that against the percentage, of each team being picked, at least in the opening round.
Okay, and scoring system matters also. I mean, the standard scoring system, from what I've seen, is obviously the winner gets the most points. So like it's something like 10, 20, 40, 80, 160, 320. Or something like that, where there's a multiplier effect where, if you the first round games, you get 10 points for the winner. Then the next round 32, you get 20, then 40, then 80, then 160, then 320. I've also seen ones where it just steps up, where it's like 10, right, 20, 30, 40, 50. And there are also ones where you get more points based on the seeding. Meaning that, if you pick a 16 to beat a 1, you get a lot of points. And then it multiplies every round like that. So if a 16 seed goes to win the entire national championship, you win the pool with like 7 trillion points or something based on whatever multiplier like that. The scoring system matters on who you pick. In the standard one, this is how I won mine. And under the standing scoring system of 10, 20, 30, whatever, 10, it multiplies every time. I just literally fill out my bracket with all the top seeds in every game, and then just randomly pick one of the last 4 teams and just whatever it is. Only because it seems like when you get 320 points for the winner, it's kind of important to have the winner. Like you can win and miss like so many other your picks in the first round, but if you have the winner,
that's why a lot of the higher stakes pools now have gone to the Fibonacci scoring, which I think is like 1, 2, 4, 6, 9, 12 or something.
Okay, so it's not as dramatic at the end.
It's right. It's not. So your first round picks do matter. In the pure like double scoring, which it used to be, I mean, you could just punt off your first round, and as long as you had the final four correct, you'd be good. A lot of the Fibonacci ones, which is I believe preferred scoring. I like the Fibonacci ones better because you kind of need to nail the first couple rounds, and then you're playing with fire. Once you've done well in the first couple rounds, then you're looking at, okay, can I get 3 or 4 final four in, and then you're feeling pretty good.
Well, because I mentioned the standard quote unquote, because a lot of office pools,
right,
like a lot of the smaller ones, and I want to make this show for like everyone, not just the people that are playing, the large ones or whatever. But if you're playing a small pool
right.
with your office, I recommend, and I told this to someone yesterday playing poker. I said instead of doing my strategy of just like all the favorites and just Duke to win and let everyone else make mistakes, I just said just focus on the final four. Pick your final four. Pick who wins the final four matchup in whatever way you want, whoever you think gets to the final four, and then after that, do whatever the hell you want in the rest of your bracket. Instead of people start from the front and they go, well, is Texas A&M going to beat Yale? Well, is Texas A&M going to beat Michigan? Go, like, no, just go right to the final. Who do you think is coming out of this bracket on each of the four sides, and then go who's going to win? And then another strategy that I think people get wrong in maybe like kind of the mid-size pools. So maybe not like 10 or 20, but maybe you're playing against like 60 to 80 is this is like I said, I know nothing about college basketball. I'm shooting game theory strategies, and you tell me if I'm on the right track or there's a lot more nuance to it. That it's more important because it's so much more important to pick the winner. If you have someone that you think is going to go far in, like, I want to say lower seed, 2, 3, 4 or something like that, or 5, 5th seed, if they make the national championship game, pick the like if you think, for instance, let's just say you think Maryland is making the championship game. It's much better for actually especially mid-sized pools. If you think it's going to be Duke Maryland, even if you think Maryland may beat Duke, it's better to just pick Duke in the final, because the likelihood of anyone having Maryland in the championship game is just so low that you don't want to lose to someone that had Duke to win, didn't have Maryland in the championship game, gets that 320 points, and then you're lost. You almost want to play Duke for the block in that instance.
Right.
Kind of.
You're in first.
You don't need to win more.
You're in first in your DFS contest. You don't get more for the gap you beat second by. Just take the money and run. That's that. What you outlined is kind of my general, getting down to like specific picks and all that kind of stuff is my general strategy. I try to do exactly what you said. I don't play. I mean, I'll toss in the like huge crazy contest, but I play more. I actually enjoy like Survivor and Calcutta's and all that stuff a little bit more even than the bracket. But in the bracket stuff, it's generally a little bit smaller, like you said, small to medium size. And I pick like one thing that I think is very realistic, but is maybe something that like John outlined, my opponents in maybe this pool or whatever are just not going to do. And that's my my one thing, and then let everybody else think that they know which 14 seed is going to win, or which team that's playing in the play-in. I see the North Carolina people in the chat. The UNC is going to make the crazy run to the Elite Eight. Like, let them do that, and I'll do right. Like you said, Maryland's going to beat. Maryland's going to make that Elite Eight or Final Four run. Nobody's going to have that. So once I've done that, like I've kind of That's it. That's my story. Right now, I just watch the Maryland games and pray. And if they win, I'm going to have a really good finish. A couple of years ago, when FAU made the Final Four from as an 8 seed, or I forget if they were 8 or the 9, they played Memphis. And my biggest take, the thing I got this right, but I ultimately landed on Memphis. I said, whoever wins this is the team that makes the run, Memphis or FAU. I thought it would be Memphis, so I lost, but FAU won that game and then made a run to the Final Four. It's like, you don't have to go as crazy as that. Every tournament is different, but that's kind of my general thing, right? What's that one thing that differentiates you? And then let everybody else beat themselves outside of that.
Right. Isn't it kind of, John, isn't it kind of a weird thing that we talk like about DFS or sports betting in general, that people tend to play chalk? Like we have the NBA shows, you know, on RotoGrinders. We have baseball shows. People want to play, you know, the Colorado Rockies stack, and they want to play, you know, they want to bet a minus 350s, 3 of them, and some 3-leg parlay, so they get plus 120 or whatever. It's kind of weird that the general public in these bracket pools tend to play too contrarian.
That is interesting, yes, and I think that's the nature of March Madness in general. Is that people watch it for the upsets, the crazy things happening, and when people get into a bracket pool, and I did this when I was growing up in high school, and I mean even the first couple of years of college, I would play bracket pools and I would take 8 or 9 upsets in the first round, and then I would feel great when I hit 3 of them, and I would still lose the pool because I was losing so many points, because who wins more often? Favorites. So once I've, you know, wised up and figured out that you don't take too many risks early. Sure, there's going to be a 12 seed, 13 seed, 14 seed, probably in the Elite 8. Are you going to pick the one? Probably not. So as long as you stay pretty close to the vest in the first couple rounds, and then peg your Final Four right, you're doing well. Now, if you do like to pick the upsets, like you were talking about, Jordan, earlier in the show, there are the upset bracket pools where you get extra points. I think it's like seed, based on seed. So like if you pick a 13 to beat a 4, you get 9 extra points or something. Right. Those are fun. I like those because the brackets get crazy. And if you do have, you know, hunches, like, you know, say Yale is going to beat Texas A&M, you get the extra points for it, and you don't get penalized when Texas A&M wins, you know, 65, 70% of the time.
So we're still talking like more standard scoring, the multiplier scoring. Now let's get to like the larger pool. So like we mentioned, like if you're playing against 10 people, like my strategy is like close your eyes, fill out all the 1 seeds to the end, and have Duke to win. Let everyone else make mistakes. Mid-size pools, maybe you have one, you know, one weird team, sort of weird team in there, but then don't play them to win. Try to block everyone else. But now let's say you're playing, it's 100,000 brackets. But it's still multiplier standard, you know, 320 at the end, 160. So it's like, like you don't need a perfect bracket. No one ever gets a perfect bracket. Right. Are there strategies to take advantage? Because like if I just filled out all the 1 seeds all the way to the end of Duke to win, like it's the equivalent of like playing the cash showdown lineup in the Super Bowl. And when you win, you're going to win with like 32,000 other people.
A lot of hand holding. Yep.
Right. A lot of hand holding. Are there strategies that you could employ that could increase the EV of your bracket? And this is me just throwing out an idea. Is there a way to like play like direct leverage, for instance? Like so many people are going to be picking Duke to win. Like, yeah, like if I have the Final Four as Duke versus Auburn, with Auburn winning, that to me that doesn't seem like enough leverage for 100,000 people. Is it something where I could like look and go, well, maybe Wisconsin beats Duke, and then I just have Wisconsin winning the whole thing? Like take the most take one or two teams that a lot of people are picking for the championship game and just have them like upset in like the Elite Eight or something like that, where a lot of people may be getting different in another, one of the quarters of the bracket, but not getting that much different in like the Duke side. And although, yeah, Duke is the favorite to win it all, like if you pick the team that upsets Duke and then wins it all, like you may have a chance at maybe is that even contrarian enough for like 100,000 brackets? You tell me.
I do think
I think
your leverage. Sorry, John. I was just going to say I think your leverage point is exactly it. It's just like DF. It's basically just like DFS, right? If everybody's going, you can play a pitcher against that chalk stack and double down on your winnings, or stack against, there's that, right? There's this new $6,100 pitcher who's a rookie call up, and everybody's playing him because he struck everybody out in the minors, and he's facing the Marlins, right? But the Marlins end up scoring 12 runs, and nobody played the Marlins because 60% of the people have that pitcher. It's kind of that. It's like, so like you said, just looking at the bracket, right, with Duke, like who at some point along the way in the huge pool, you're probably going to need Duke to lose. And kind of the earlier the better. Of course, they're not going to lose to a 16, right? And maybe you don't want to take the 8, 9. But like as soon as after that happens, it's like I'm starting to think about when am I knocking Duke off, because now I've just eliminated, right, 30% of the pool, they're gone, right? And then you start working your way down that list of all those other things. You don't have to knock off every one of those, right? You don't have to leverage every single popular team, but like compounding just a couple of those leverage plays, I do think is enough. Say a Duke last year, one of the only things I got right among a miserable bracket that I put together was finding the most popular like round one upsets and then taking that team a couple more rounds. So it was Clemson last year. They were actually underdogs as were they 5 or 6? 7? I can't remember. They played New Mexico in round one, and New Mexico was everybody's favorite air quotes upset, but they're actually favored in the betting markets. New Mexico was. Well, Clemson went to the Elite Eight, and so most people just right off the bat lost the Clemson game in round one, and that's not that many points. But then nobody has that team in the Elite Eight, right? Because they took them out in round one. So you can kind of find just a couple of little spots like that. Take out the big favorite, ideally a little bit early, right? Sweet 16, something like that. And then find a couple of those other like really dramatic leverage points where you rack up a bunch of points that your opponents aren't getting. And they're definitely not getting, right? They definitely don't have Duke losing and that 7 seed in the Elite Eight or whatever that everybody picked against in round one.
So John,
if you want to find,
I was
going to piggyback on Eric's. If you want to find two of those,
I also wanted to ask you: is there a way to fill out a bracket that's contrarian that does have Duke winning?
Well, yes. I think taking from what you always say, play whoever you want in the 100,000 bracket, because anybody reasonable. Obviously, you're not going to take a 16 or a 15, to the Final Four, but anybody could theoretically make the run that would get you different. Now, if you want to keep Duke and you're just, convinced by all means they're going to win the title, we have some of the best 8 seeds this year that we have ever seen analytically. Gonzaga, in all of the metrics, are a top 10 team. You can argue if they're that good, but the analytics say they are. They are an 8 seed. You have the 2-time defending national champions as an 8 seed. And then you have Louisville, who's also a really good 8 seed. So if you wanted to get different, you could knock off the other 3 1s in the second round by all the 8 seeds. That would get you really pretty different. And I do not think the 1s are going to be that big of a favorite against Louisville or Gonzaga. Now you're taking a big risk, obviously, but what you're playing 100,000 player bracket pool, like you're going for the win. Doesn't matter if you get 10th. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe there's payouts, but usually the brackets are even more top heavy, with that many people. But yeah, the other thing I was going to say to piggyback off Eric, what he was saying, like with Clemson last year, we have two of the most favorite underdogs as 12 seeds, UC San Diego and Colorado State. Colorado State's a betting favorite. If you wanted to take Memphis and Michigan far, I think that would get you different. I mean, Memphis is a very talented team, and they have one of the best guards in PJ Haggerty. And we've seen Michigan be able to win all sorts of games. So there's that spot right here this year, just like what Eric was saying last year with Clemson.
Yep, same thing. It happens every year. There's almost always some higher seeded team that, right. So like when we say this team is favored, people are probably like, if you're not like a big college basketball person, like the spreads, right, are based on analytical profiles, which are, predictive metrics. We're trying to understand exactly how good we think this team actually is. Seeds are based on your resume, and those can be very different things, actually. Right? Who you need to actually beat teams, but if you stay within margin, right, or you just blow teams out when you do win, your analytical profile says you're, something, but you lost. If you lost the game, you lost the game. So your seed, that's Gonzaga, right? They've been incredible. They beat the absolute bricks off of mediocre to bad teams. They go right down to the wire with all the good teams. They just haven't pulled those games out. So analytically, they're like a top 10 team in the country, right? Like John said, I have some small concerns about how real that is, but even setting that aside, like you can find those situations where there's this team who is, right, Colorado State is a 2.5 point favorite over Memphis, and they're a 12 seed, and Memphis is a 5. Everyone knows that now. Colorado State just won the Mountain West tournament. They're the hottest team in the country. You're going to hear that on ESPN all week. All this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, Memphis can they're only 2.5 point favorites. Memphis can clearly beat them. And then you say, I don't even remember who the 4 seed is in that spot. Right there's your Maryland there. Right there. Yeah, there's your Maryland. You say, well, now they just beat Maryland, and I got two wins that absolutely nobody has with Memphis because there's not a single person. The betting markets don't even think that they're going to win. Nonetheless, the people picking, it's just there's such little spots like that, I think, that are so obvious. And then I would just also add, like, it's always the upsets. Not always. Very frequently, it is the Cinderellas that no one sees coming. NC State last year makes the run to the Final Four. Auburn was this like Gonzaga that we're talking about here of this year. I think they were 4th in the country in KenPom.
They were 4
last
because
year.
I got wrecked because I had them Final Four in almost every single bracket.
Yeah,
that was my hard stand.
Yeah,
and then Chad Baker-Mazar gets ejected, and Yale's incredible, and they make all their threes, and Auburn's gone.
No one on the planet. They were the biggest favorite as a 4 seed over the 13 seed. Like I said, they were arguably a 1 seed from a talent and analytical profile perspective. Absolutely no one's. More people picked them to the Final Four than picked them to lose, and it's understandable. They were awesome, but just crazy stuff happens. Like John said, one of their best players punches a guy and gets ejected, and they lose to Yale. And so I'm always looking for like those kind of spots, is just the ones that, I don't want to do anything like way too crazy. There are certain ones that I think are just a little bit too off the wall, but find that middle ground. I don't want to take the stone chalk necessarily, but I also don't want to take something, I don't need to play all 1% guys, right, Blender, but I can mix and match those 1% plays amongst some normal plays.
Well, I think you could get a lot more creative in the step scoring systems, or the Fibonacci or whatever, like where it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, where you could legitimately in a small pool. So let's go with not standard scoring, not multiplier, where essentially you're getting all your points, like just with the winner in the Final Four. If you're playing like 10, 20 people in one where it's like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, like it's quite possible to win your pool without even having the winner at all. I mean, like it's quite possible that someone has the winner and doesn't have the other 3 Final Four teams, and actually lost compared to someone that had 3 of the Final Four teams, and the winner they had getting knocked out early because you just don't get enough points at the end, and they accumulated enough along the way. So there, I think getting a little bit different and a little bit more like leveragey in the smaller stuff. I mean, truthfully, even with the step stuff, you may be playing in a pool with your office or something where people are picking 8 upsets and you just take the favorites the whole way through and let everyone else make mistakes. But I could tell you that, here, I'm in Louisville. Let me just tell you that, in a steps type of ladder system, like I guarantee you that less people are going to have Auburn in the Final Four.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying I have to play Creighton over Louisville, and I'm not even saying that some people here in Louisville will even have Auburn in their bracket. But let's just say out of 20 people, I think maybe 6 or 7 at least are picking Louisville to upset Auburn because I'm sitting here in Louisville playing against Louisvillians. Here's the Eric. This is the weird counter strategy though. Okay, you have to know whether or not they're UK fans, because if they're UK fans, then they do have Auburn because they want Louisville to lose. So you now have to look and go, and now you have to look and you go, is Illinois going to beat Kentucky? Right, you're picking like these are the weird things when you get into the really small pools. Is that I'm here in a metro area where college basketball, is king by far. I guarantee you, if I was in a pool at the poker club, I would not be picking Louisville or Kentucky to go far because too many other people have them going too far. The question is that how many U of L fans and how many UK fans are in my pool, because it's going to be lopsided to the other direction. So like if I'm playing against UK fans, I'm going to be picking, Houston to come out of that side or Tennessee to come out of that side. And against Louisville fans, I'm picking Auburn. It's just kind of weird, like in the smaller pools that you do, like there are these like really big edges that you could have where if you just take advantage of that one edge, you could pretty much fill out the chalk the rest of the way. Now, once you get up to 100, 200 people, and then once we get up to thousands, that's a different story. But I want people, especially since, you're filling out an office pool. I think everyone, like, even if you're doing it for $10, I think everyone does one regardless.
My mother-in-law texted me asking about, she doesn't know anything about, she hasn't watched a college basketball game in her life probably. And she texts me, who's in your Final Four? What upsets do I pick?
But you could find whatever that is in your area, whatever that edge is. Simply the week before the bracket comes out, you talk to by the water cooler, and people have takes, and you go, well, there's only 12 people in our contest, and John and Bill and Sarah all say that that it's Duke's year or something, or that the Gonzaga. Oh, everyone on ESPN said Gonzaga was good. Because it could be the edge, like Eric, it could be the edge that your office doesn't know anything about college basketball and doesn't realize how good Gonzaga and Louisville are. Yep. Or it could be the complete opposite, where everyone has watched the ESPN shows, and that's all they're saying. So it's like, oh, well, you got to pick. Oh, I'm going to pick a Gonzaga over Houston upset. And your office out of 12 people, half the people are doing it. And you just, well, okay, well, I'm just going to pick Houston.
Right. To the point before about like understanding who you're playing against, are these people, and most people are not big college basketball fans, right? And so they're certainly not sickos watching as much as John and I do. But are they just like straight picking for fun? Like you said, they're like, oh, I like the color, right? I like or they have a cool name, or I like this school. They have great colors. They have cool jerseys, whatever. Are they doing that? Or will they go read an ESPN article? Right? Are they gonna go seek out advice from one of the big networks? And then that's your edge, right? Because those guys don't know any better than anybody else does. They just have the biggest platform. Oftentimes they're very ill-informed, quite frankly. There are smart guys that work for them, but a lot of them are casual, but they haven't watched UC San Diego, right? Those guys don't know these teams. They work for ESPN. They're like Stephen A's of the world. And so, their only opinions are like, oh, I called one Wisconsin game, so I know. I know Wisconsin, and so it's like
I've been
but
to Wisconsin. I should know Wisconsin.
yeah,
Right. I've been there.
I ate cheese one time in Wisconsin, and it was awesome. So Wisconsin to the Final Four, like but there's a lot of that, right? And are your opponents going to go seek out the ESPN advice? Because that's the easiest exploit. I don't want the people that are picking jersey colors and stuff like that because I can't predict those guys, right? It's like not knowing any projected ownership going into a DFS slate. Like, is everybody going to play Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or Kadarius Toney? I don't know, but if I know where they're kind of headed, that's ultimately the best because then those leverage points become super clear. You kind of what you need to accomplish in your bracket becomes pretty clear.
If it's Davis, he's playing Kadarius Toney over the other two.
100%. Same price, doesn't matter.
John, how about for like mid-size? So like let's say it's not a you're not playing against 10 people. We're playing a more like even-ish we want to call it a Fibonacci type of scoring. But now you're playing maybe 100, 200, 300 people pools, like not like national challenges type of stuff, but now it's like mid-size. To me, I think this would be the most creative, like where you could get contrarian but not stupid. Like then we'll talk about the large pools with that type of scoring, which I mean you could go nuts with that. So what would be your strategies as far as like you're playing with 100, 200 people and you're playing where you don't get 1,000,000 points for the winner? Do you still is it still important that you get the Final Four right perfectly enough I think where you want all the better seeds in there?
You don't want all the better seeds, but you're going to want to still keep it pretty close to the vest. And this goes back to what Eric was saying. Like if you have a hunch about an edge that you can get, one of the most interesting things that's come up over the past couple weeks has, at least like for the people I've been talking to, is that everybody is just enamored over Florida. They watched them play in the SEC
title
tournament.
Favorite.
You
never would have said that. Watched them 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and everybody loves Florida now. And it seems like if you're in a pool with a lot of people who watch college basketball or at least start to pay attention later in the year, that Florida is now the America's team. People they say Florida is the best team when on. Like I've seen people tweet, like there's no team that matches up with Florida when they play their best. And I'm just seeing that Florida getting a ton of steam. And analytically, they're very, very similar to Duke, Houston, Auburn. So in those pools, I think you can. I mean, like, I'm not advocating for knocking off Florida, but if you have a hunch that Florida is not as good as everybody thinks, and they just got a hot run in the tournament, et cetera, you think they have a tough road, which they do. They have a very tough bracket. You can, feasibly knock them off in the Elite Eight. And what you can do by that is you still get the points for them advancing a few rounds. And then hopefully, if you like the bottom half of their bracket, you say, okay, well, I don't know if it's going to be St. John's, Texas Tech, or Missouri, or Kansas, or Arkansas, but I think all those teams have a reasonable chance at Florida. And then it doesn't really matter who gets to Florida, and then you just peg the other 3 Final Fours, and you're pretty good. Obviously, you're still going to want to keep it close to the vest, mostly to grab those points in the first couple rounds, and then, make sure your Final Four title favorites are in there. But a lot of the pools that I've done in those 100 to 200 medium field Fibonacci, if you get 3 Final Fours, you are in great shape, no matter if you have the title favorite or not. If you get 2 Final Fours and you have at least one team in the title game, you're in great shape. You don't need to be totally perfect. And a lot of times it comes down to tiebreakers and how many points you won in the first couple rounds. So you're not going to want to get too crazy in the first couple rounds.
I'd also add, I guess a couple quick things. This is maybe the strongest field we've ever had in a March Madness tournament. The sport I think is getting with NIL and all that kind of stuff. It's an older sport now. We also have a pretty historic freshman class, so kind of worlds colliding of just the overall talent level of all these teams. But then we had 0 bid stealers. 0. Normally, right, multiple teams win conference tournaments that we're not going to get in. NC State did it last year and went to the Final Four. Right, Duquesne did it in the A10 last year. Like a team, it happens every year. There's usually several of those types of situations. This year there was not. That's the only reason that the North Carolinas and such, Texas, etc., are in the field, is because not one single team that was not going to be in the tournament and also was not from a 1-bid league won their conference tournament. So we have this insanely strong field, and the mid majors are really strong, right? People have probably heard the SEC is the greatest conference ever, and it might be. And so there's, like John said, 8, some of the probably the best 8 seeds of all time, maybe some of the best 12 seeds of all time. Like there's so many opportunities for that would not be stunning upsets. Like if these teams played, if we remove the number away from them next to their name, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we remove that and they played in January, and whoever beat, Maryland beat Florida, we'd be like, oh, that's a little shocking. But like, I don't know, Maryland is the 12th best team in the country. Right? If number 12 beats number 2, is anybody surprised in January? Not at all. But they seem surprised here, particularly, like John said, with these like really trendy, teams that are, it's generally the hot team, right? Auburn was always thought to be the best team in the country. It was either them or Duke all season long. Auburn loses 3 out of their final 4 games, and Florida is scorching hot. And now all of a sudden it's over, right? Auburn season's over, and Florida's going to the national championship game. And that's certainly possible, but I think Florida has the toughest road by a good stretch of any of these other 1 seeds. Duke, on the other hand, is like, Cooper Flag should be fine, but he just had a pretty gnarly ankle injury. They also lost their backup center, who's Malik Brown, who's really good. Like, I don't expect Duke to get knocked off, but there's also, it's that you're not just like, if people want like real reason, right? It's not just full game theory, like gotta fade the chalk or whatever. It's like these teams can absolutely lose. It's more than possible for these teams to get knocked off. Like the Florida region is like basically the best of all the seeds. The best 2 seed, the best, not necessarily the best 2 seed, close enough. The best 3 seed for sure. The best 4 seed. They got the second best 8. They're it's a tough region. So you can pick them off, in those medium and certainly big pools, pick off those chalky high seeds fairly early this year with at least a little more confidence maybe than you would be historically.
Now, how about the really large brackets that are using this type of scoring system with the more Fibonacci based? Is this where you get a little bit more nuts, where you're setting up a Final Four that has like no 1 seeds in it or something? Like, because the thing is, it's kind of weird to say. You could be in a bracket challenge with like 1 million people, and it's the standard, multiplier scoring, and like you still would probably have Duke in the Final Four, only because there's just so many points available in that like you need to basically, you absolutely need to get your Final Four correct. And if you happen, if in the multiplier ones, if you get like the Final Four is a 6 seed, an 8 seed, a 4 seed, and a 7 seed, like you probably will win regardless of who you pick the winner if that happened. So it doesn't even matter who the winner is. And the thing is that if you get one of them wrong and that team wins, you lose. Like it's the type, like it's like I'm gonna put my bracket. Let's say I'm getting extreme here. Okay, I just for the hell of it. I'm picking Yale, Grand Canyon, High Point, and Mississippi State. And let's say you get the other 3 perfect for whatever. Grand Canyon gets to the Final Four, but Duke is on the other side of the bracket instead of Mississippi State, and then Duke just beats everyone in the final. Like you got 3 Final Four teams that literally no one in your entire bracket has, and Duke wins, and you still lose because the 320 points for Duke, too many people have, and you just even then you can't win. But in the Fibonacci type of scoring, you can win because Duke will only get 50 points at the it won't get
You
as
won.
many.
You won
points
that
as
one in the Elite Eight. You had that one wrapped up in the
Yeah.
Elite Eight. If that
Right.
happened,
Right. Well, that's how contrary. Like obviously, my extreme is you shouldn't do,
Yeah.
but in the larger ones with that scoring system, would you think about making Final Four picks that because you're playing against 100,000 people and you're playing, and truthfully, we play like DFS. We're GPP players, right? We play for first place. We don't play. I mean, we didn't talk about the payout structure. Also, we're assuming in all these examples that it's essentially a winner take all contest. Okay.
Yeah.
In a winner take all contest, I mean, why wouldn't I mean? I almost think that maybe it's better to just get four final. This a weird way to say get overly contrarian is just pick four Final Four teams that aren't the favorites, and if you get anywhere close to that, I mean, you have a great shot at winning because you've accumulated enough points where even if you pick the wrong winner, it's quite possible maybe you could still win in like 100,000 contests. Like if let's say for instance you're going like not completely off the board. So let's say you go like Louisville, Maryland, Wisconsin, UCLA, or something like something like that, and you have you have Maryland winning it all, or something like that. Yeah, the chances are low that it comes out that way, but like if you happen to get like 3 of the 4 Final Four teams, or even 2 out of the 4, and the winner, like wouldn't I feel like in those types of contests, I would like to have like 20 brackets and just fill out ones that look more like that than fill out ones that have like Auburn, Florida, Duke, and then like Kentucky. Than having Kentucky win, because like, okay, that's the 3 seed that wins, but you have the other 1 seeds. It feels like even if Kentucky does win, maybe you still don't get enough points because you didn't pick enough of some upset went to the Elite Eight, and that bracket with a Kentucky winner as won. Like, I'm trying to talk things out, but I don't know. It just feels like in the Fibonacci scoring, like picking the winner isn't like as important, but picking like contrarian Final Four teams would be.
That no one else would have. Yep.
Right.
So you're gaining on basically the entire field. And I do think that is a reasonable strategy. I also think, in my opinion, I feel like you would want to go 3 crazy ones and then 1 pretty highly ranked teams in the analytics. Because if you look at the previous champions, I think the only team that is out of the top 10 in the analytics was UConn in 14. And I think every single other team for the past 20 years has been just a very, very good team. I mean, not saying it can't, right? The lives of the Thanksgiving turkey thing, but generally at least one good team is going to be there. So I personally would like to go 3 off the wall Final Four picks, because a lot of times we see 2 or 3 come in, and then 1 very strong team. That's just my opinion, but like I think basically what you were trying to say is that team probably doesn't matter if you peg the other 3 crazy Final Fours that no one else would have.
Right.
And then doing 4 of them gives you 4 shots at the 3 instead of just 3 shots at the 3. Which is, I think that is pretty reasonable as well. There are a lot of ways to attack it. But we also have to realize that, no one knows what's going to happen. So I think taking the contrarian plays is better than taking any sort of, anybody that, like, the favorites, which are Duke and Florida, I think are the most popular. I haven't looked at the data on the ESPN or whatever, like projected bracket picks, how many people have X as champion or whatever.
It's the most popular final. It's the most popular final is
okay.
Duke and Florida.
Definitely don't want that final, I don't think.
Yeah,
Because it's going to be very hard to win.
I think that's if we want to like narrow it down to one thing, and people just say, "What should I take?" Don't put Duke and Florida unless you're in.
Eric, people are coming here because we know what's going to happen, right? That's why they tune into. So okay, so you're filling out your bracket against 300,000 people. You're doing Duke, Florida. Eric, tell me because the tiebreaker is going to be the score. So what's the score of that? What's the score of that game?
Well, then I could probably come up with it. It's a lot. It's a very big number. 165. So there you go. We solved it.
There you go. Okay, so that's the tiebreaker. You even got the tiebreaker going on there. Yeah. So do you have Eric? Do you have anything to add as far as like more Fibonacci-based scoring for larger fields?
Yeah, I think kind of that last point. I agree with everything that both of you said. But I also think it doesn't always have to be like, and I know it was hyperbole for point, but it doesn't have to be right like UCLA. It doesn't have to be 7 seed from this region and 13 seed from this region and 8 from this region. There's just like really underpicked, really good high seeds every single year. Not only
we'll talk about Eric. Don't. The last segment is going to be we're going to go to each quadrant and go who's overowned, who's underowned. Essentially, who do you think is?
So I won't give out any specific names, but that's also right. I think people will say, what you were describing before. Some version of it is definitely viable as well as John's kind of point of being like, let's still toss one of these top 8 teams or something in there as well. But then like you could realistically have a Final Four of like all top 15 analytical, like and some of them, right? I mean, Gonzaga is an 8 seed, so that would be by seed big up, right? Louisville is really good. Maryland is apparently the team we all keep saying Maryland, so maybe that's the team. Either they're screwed in round 1 or they're actually going to make a run. But like, Maryland is 12th in the country. They're awesome. Like there's a bunch of teams like that, right? That you can find. You don't got to go to. No offense to Memphis. I know we were just touting Memphis because they're a contrarian pick, but like Memphis is like 50th. It's like they're like kind of bad, even though that they're a 5 seed. Not that they can't do it, right? But you can find this middle ground too of like, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can get this like crazy funky Final Four that no one else has, but they're also like really awesome teams. It doesn't have to be just straight Cinderella to get contrarian with your Final Four.
So let's go. Okay, John, add. Yeah.
Real quick to add what I was saying before about the teams who have won the title being high in the analytics. Well, if you win 6 games in a row, your analytics are going to go up. So naturally, the title favorite is going to be high. And anyways, that's just what I want to say.
So let's go quadrant by quadrant. I know maybe if you have or haven't seen like the ESPN, ownership-ish, but I mean, you get a sense of who's going to be high owned, who's going to be low owned as far as
it's pretty easy to
Final
predict.
Four.
It's right. Pretty easy to predict, actually.
Right. So like so basically, who would be from an ownership perspective your fade, and who would be from an ownership perspective your take? And this is especially true for like larger field, flatter scoring, right? What we talked about, when you're getting 320 points for the winner, you're probably picking mostly favorites, right? You're not doing it. Doesn't matter. Oh, this team's going to be owned. You're going to need them. Okay, so on the Auburn quadrant, who's going to be overowned? Who's going to be underowned? Do you think, John?
I think Michigan State is overowned. Izzo has a very reputation of being good in March. Everybody talks about that all the time. And I don't really see anybody here who is a comfortable click to the Final Four other than Auburn. So I think too many people are going to go Michigan State. I mean, it's possible, honestly, that Iowa State is the most underowned. They put out a press conference in the middle of the selection show to announce that Keyshawn Gilbert is out for the rest. Like, do they not know what was happening? They don't want people to know he's out. I don't know.
They were trying to hide it. Nobody was going to see that. They got some drama going on, right? So to your point, it's like vibes. It's like the Florida vibes are so good that everybody has just got on the bandwagon. Iowa State's the opposite. They were a top 10 team all season. They've been banged up, and that's what has had some issues. And then they have some bad. The Gilbert thing has behind the scenes is supposedly not. It's not just injury, is kind of what the people are saying. And so like it's a bad vibes team, even though they're still really really good. So you can just get this awesome Iowa State team that just has bad vibes in this region that's wide open. Like you said, it's totally wide open.
And Curtis Jones is an absolute baller who's going to be playing a ton of minutes. I mean, if you watch any of the game, he hit like 5-6 straight threes.
He's very Caleb Lovey.
Yeah,
he can go and he can, but that's Caleb Love.
He can win you a game by himself.
He once led his team to the championship game. Caleb Love did. It's just he also can lose you a game, but that's all it takes, right? If you have that flamethrower that can just go scorched earth for 4 games, that's enough.
So Iowa State is under.
So for that quadrant, Michigan State overowned, Iowa State underowned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the Florida side? Is Florida the overowned team? Is Colorado State the overowned team? Which is the overowned team in this quadrant?
Florida definitely the most overowned. Florida. Yeah. Florida for sure the most overowned coming out. I do think Colorado State could be the most overowned first round game for sure. Drake is gonna push them for most overowned though in that first round. That's another really 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 awesome. People love again the Cinderellas, and they love the mid majors. Drake has a really awesome story. So speaking of awesome vibes, Drake has elite vibes, amazing vibes. Not quite Omaha vibes. We got to at least shout out Omaha at some point during this show. Everybody go look up what Omaha did during the course of the season. They had kind of a roughish start, and all of a sudden the coach brought out a trash can after a game and just started doing WWE wrestling moves on it after a win, and that caught fire, and they did it after every single game, after every win for the rest of the season, and they went like totally viral. The chancellor of the school, after they won the conference championship, hid in the trash can and like popped out, so vibes teams, right? Omaha is a great vibes team, but Drake is a great vibes team. A D2
and they got the name too. Like people are going to look at the bracket and say, "Oh, Drake, I know them from last year or the year before." Even though they're not the same team at all.
So are these Final Four teams though? I mean, you have Florida as overowned. Who would be an underowned Final Four team?
St. John's. I don't think people really respect the 2C or Texas Tech. Really, I think both of them are awesome. They're all awesome teams. But everybody's got Florida fever, and I don't think people know who to pick between the two of them. So you're just not going to get enough ownership on either of them.
On either. Texas Tech is 7th in Ken Pom. They're a 2 seed.
Really good.
I'm going to go with St. John's only because I was amazed to even see them as a 2 seed, because I'm from New York, and the last time St. John's were good, Lou Carnesecca had his his sweaters on the sidelines or whatever. I'm an old school Big East guy, but I mean from like the 80s and 90s.
You should love this St. John's
team. Now you got
team.
Patino in his suits.
You should love this St. John's team. Patino and they are New York City basketball. St. John's.
Right, well, because when you're from New York, really college basketball isn't a thing because we really don't have like Iona and Canisius and like all these kind of like weird teams. We have all these pro teams, so no one cares. But when St. John's is good, St. John's in New York City is treated as
they sell out the Garden
as a pro team.
Yeah, they sell out the Garden for some St. John's games. It's pretty crazy.
But they were just bad. They were bad for like 25 years since like the early 90s.
They finally made a good hire.
Yeah, he just hired one of the best coaches of all time. What a surprise! But I think I would final stamp St. John's as the vote here, because I think to John's point, kind of the nerds like us really love Texas Tech. Rightfully so. They're awesome. Like you said, they're closer to a 1 seed than they are to a 3 seed. Like profile wise. But that's what we said about Auburn. last year, right? And crazy stuff happens.
Yep.
And I think St. John's is, again, that they're kind of like the Iowa State of this region, although St. John's has great vibes. It's just, people just, don't really believe, and they have a really tough region. So they're just swaying away from St. John's. And same thing, they're a 2 seed. They're awesome. They have a great coach. They have great players. They could easily make a run to the Final Four.
They've been so bad, people subconsciously are like, wow, a 2 seed, they're going to fall, right?
Right.
Like,
Jordan
they've
just
been
did
so bad
it.
for so
He's
long.
just like they've been
yeah,
terrible.
like, they're 2 seed?
Yep.
What? Oh, they can't go far. Like, subconsciously, right? That's kind of what you think,
Mhm.
Like, if you see Kansas as a 7, you're like, oh my goodness. Like, Kansas is always good, I mean, they usually fall in the tournament, but yeah, St. John's, I like it.
Okay, the Duke quadrant. Obviously, Duke is the over-owned team to make the Final Four. Who's the under-owned team? Is it just literally everyone else? Just anyone you pick is going to be under-owned?
Kind of, yeah.
Duke has in theory the easiest second round game as well. The other 1 seeds have a very hard one. I mean, Oregon, Arizona, both of those teams,
one of those two. Yeah.
Both of those teams have incredible wins. Like, they can win games. They can also lose games too. But it wouldn't surprise me to see either one of those teams knock Duke off.
That's what I would say. It's kind of also the leveragey point that we talked about before. I think someone could say, okay, Alabama gets there and they're the 2 seed. This is going to be my upset in the Elite Eight, but I'm never going to pick Arizona or Oregon to beat Duke, nonetheless, to make it to the Final Four. And I think that game in and of itself is a toss-up. So people are going to have a difficult time, right? It's going to be split between Arizona and Oregon, period, assuming everybody picks, which I think they will, pick both of those teams to advance. So now you already dwindled it down. It's 50-50 between that game, and then it's 95-5 or whatever, Duke over each of them. Either one of Arizona or Oregon clipping Duke would be easily the cleanest path to separating yourself in this region, for sure.
How about the Houston region? We haven't talked about that region that much. It seems like is anyone going to be like over-owned here? Because I mean, talked about obviously Duke, then Florida, everyone's high on, and then Auburn's obviously top team obviously in that region. We've gone almost an hour and I don't think we've mentioned Houston at all. Is this one of the is this a region where people are more like, I'm thinking in terms of, well, I'm going to pick Duke, Auburn, and Florida, and then pick some weird team out of this
Tennessee.
region.
They'll take Tennessee,
right, or something like
Kentucky,
that.
or Clemson or Purdue or something. Yeah, this is the region that people will get. I think Tennessee, most overowned, stands out to me here. It's certainly possible that it's one of those 3, 4, 5s.
Is it possible the 1 seed Houston is the under-owned team?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think people are sick of. I think people are sick of Houston.
Yeah, they are statistically the least likely by odds to make it out of their region, which I think people will look at and say, oh, well, that'll be the region I knock off the 1 seed. But it's not very different. Plus 105, minus 120, minus 135, it's not different. They're very, very still they're a flip. They're a coin flip to make it out of the region. And I think this is the region that people will choose to get different. So I do think Tennessee. Because
Gonzaga
I'm not comfortable clicking any of the others.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say Gonzaga too. That's part of the reason why Houston is probably also lower on people's minds as they play Gonzaga in round 2. It's kind of like your Kansas point to St. John's. It's like people see, oh my God, Gonzaga 8 seed. They got to play Gonzaga in the second round. And first of all, Gonzaga's got to get there. But Houston has had a fairly long run here in recent years of struggling in the tournament, getting knocked off early. It's been mostly due to injuries, and then naturally one of their players got hurt in the conference tournament. He's fine, but I think, like you said, we went the whole show and we didn't talk about Houston. I think people are just like, maybe Houston isn't built for this March stuff, and like they're kind of they won like 1,000,000 games in a row. Like they are absolutely incredible, but I think people are just bored of them, right? Florida's sexier, Duke is sexier. These other teams are just more fun than this Houston, beat the shit out of their opponents and play bully ball, and they've had poor marches in recent years. So to the point, I want to take Auburn, I want to take Duke, I want to take Florida. Houston kind of gets left
because
in
people
the dust.
don't want to take all 4 1 seeds, right? There's a narrative out there that like, oh, I can't take all 4 1 seeds, so Houston's going to be the one that they drop. I do agree with that,
which is hilarious because Houston has lost one time since November 30th, and it was in overtime. It was in overtime to Texas Tech, and one time in the second best conference in the country. Right? They're just beating the out of everybody, and they're the team that's like, no, we don't care about them. No, nobody cares about them. I think
2 of their other losses to Auburn and Alabama.
Right, exactly. Took Auburn to the wire, Alabama to overtime. Like they're incredible, and I think they like when comparing or adding together what you guys were talking about earlier with like a funky Final Four, but then maybe like one other really good team. They would be a team you could use as the like really good analytical team as your fourth, and it's like right, everybody's going to use this region as the contrarian region, and you use it as the one seed's going to make it out of this region, and then you kind of get right. You do your Maryland and you do your Iowa State and you do your whatever your Oregon in the other regions, and then this one is Houston, and that's still contrarian even though they're the 1 seed.
Yep, and this Houston team reminds me a lot of the Virginia team that won the title.
That's a great point.
Just elite defense, slow tempo, failed in the tournament for a couple years. I mean, they didn't lose to a 16 seed, but elite guard play, good forwards.
Great coach.
I mean, I like this Houston team.
Eric, knowing where you are, you don't have one bracket that has SIU beating Houston?
It is. That's my sister went there. It is 15 minutes away from me. And when they revealed it, I was like, I knew they were going to be a 16, but I was just hoping they would play like Florida. Like Florida they're going to get killed against any of these teams, but they might actually score a couple points on Florida. When it was Houston, I'm texting the buddies that went to SIUE. They're all excited. They're throwing big parties down there in Edwardsville. And I was just, oh no. Oh no, this is going to be really, really, really bad for SIUE. Their first half team total is 21.5 points. It's like an elementary school game. Like they are just not going to score. It's a rough draw for your first tournament.
What's the spread on that game in general?
They're almost 30.
29.
Oh, they're 30-point underdogs?
Yeah, they're the biggest underdogs of the first round, I believe. Houston beats I bet Houston when it opened, it's moved up. Houston is historically dominant against inferior opponents in the last 2 tournaments when I think they're 1 seeds in both of them, won by 53 and 47 or something like that in the opening rounds. They don't, this is a blessing and a curse. They don't pull the reins back until like very, 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 they'll be up 45 with the starters in with 5 minutes left in the game. Like they beat the brick, and then they have, their 12th man is better than SIUE's second best player. So they just bully teams. Like it's in their DNA to we're gonna bully you. They play Blender. You'll enjoy it. The every day to open practice for 20 minutes. They play 5-on-5 in the half court, but they put a lid on the rim, so you can't make shots. And it's like a football practice because rebounding and defense is like their thing. So they just beat the crap out of everybody. So that's why they're fun. But I also think people that's not sexy, right? Defense and rebounding and stuff like that's not sexy in the tournament. That's why everybody loves Florida and everybody hates Houston.
Right. I'm just looking at how would I fill out a bracket if I was just a total, stupid fan or whatever. It's like based on where I am, it would be my Final Four would be Louisville, St. John's, Kentucky, and I got to throw Duke in just because you got to throw in a 1 seed there also. So because the thing is that if I'm gonna have all the crazy people here, it's during college basketball, March Madness, the bars are not. I mean, here in Louisville, it's almost like in a Kentucky Derby, and I always know, especially when I don't follow it, that they've been knocked out of the tournament is when on Friday night I could go down like the main like cool hipster area and like not have any traffic, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess both teams were knocked out because there's, or they didn't make it, or one's in the NIT or something, or one is on suspension because they bribed someone, or there's some sex scandal or something, or whatever like that. But I do know. I mean, this is how little I follow college basketball. It has happened multiple times since I've moved here. 17 years ago, that I will go to a grocery store and pick up like a frozen pizza, pick up ice, like something just like noshing snack type of stuff. And someone will ask me either in an aisle or when I didn't go to a U-Scan or the cashier, oh, you're watching the game today? And my reaction is, what game? I don't know. And a lot of times it's the Louisville, Kentucky when they play each other, right? When they play each other, then everything's whatever. So I feel like I'm in the heart of college basketball. I think, would you consider the two hearts of college basketball to be like Louisville and like North Carolina, like the Raleigh-ish
Tobacco
area?
Road,
right? Because
you're in one of them, and then Tobacco Road. Yep.
Right, and then also Auburn, Alabama, but I think that's more like for college football more so.
But they're becoming basketball schools, man. They are both top 10 teams every single year, seemingly in basketball, and the Alabama's still good at football, but the Auburn football team hadn't been good since Cam Newton or something. So it's a bit rough. The SEC has taken over college basketball too, so they're getting everything.
So last takes, last tips. Where people can find you, because I mean, you guys typically aren't on many shows around here. So Eric, hot take, last tips, and where people can find you.
Yeah, I'll do the last part first. You can find most of my stuff nowadays at Spike Week. I'm still doing, of course, RotoGrinders work, but I don't do NBA, so you don't see me for a few months. I'll be back doing some baseball stuff. I can't believe that's started already. Goodness. But of course, over at Scores and Odds, myself and John will be putting in I got tons of picks in already. I can't help myself with the tournament, but all our sports betting picks and analysis and everything is over there. We also got an article out, kind of an expert survey style March Madness article, but I'm over at Spike Week doing best ball stuff. They even have best ball March Madness on Underdog now this year, which is super duper fun. But yeah, over at Spike Week, and I don't have any like crazy team takes. I think we've covered a lot of that. I'm definitely more of like a contrarian bracket maker than a team take kind of guy. But just reiterating kind of what I said, what we've said over the course of this show is like, this field is awesome. Like, don't really be afraid. Again, in the medium to bigger size pools, don't really be afraid to be different with one of these teams that you like. You listen to your favorite analyst or whatever, and they're like, so and so can't beat. This team can't beat this team. Like, there's almost no matchups where I feel that, outside of the 15s and 16s, there's like almost no matchup where I feel like a team can't win because the field is just that strong. So if you have conviction, stick with it. If it's contrarian, even better.
John.
Yep. And then Eric got most of mine. I mean, I'm just writing over at Scores and Odds, and we have the expert survey out, and then on Twitter at Bronze Sword. And then, yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about a little bit of our contrarian plays. I'm a sucker for upsets. So I think that Yale has an incredible matchup against the Texas A&M team, who is horrible on offense. Yale rebounds the ball well. Texas A&M's entire offense is on the offensive glass, and Yale rebounds very, very well. They also shoot threes, and we know Buzz Williams loves to let teams shoot threes. I think that is my favorite upset pick of the first round. I also think that Dylan Hunter, broken hand for Clemson, is very, very bad for them. He is their best perimeter defender, and McNeese has a lot of guards. We know Will Wade loves to press, and teams who press and shoot threes have the makeup of a giant killers. So I'm going to say left side of the bracket, Yale beats Texas A&M, and I'm going to say right side of the bracket, McNeese beats Clemson. Although I love this Clemson team, but I really think that Dylan Hunter injury is is horrible
It
for them.
sucks so bad because this Clemson, like they could make a run. That injury, I think, is worrisome. But I love the
They're
Yale.
gonna
That might have been the first bet I made. Was
Yeah.
Yale in the opening round. The matchup is just the
couldn't ask
schematics
for a
don't
better schematics. Yeah,
perfect, absolutely perfect.
So just to be clear, so you have the championship game as Yale versus McNeese.
Yale McNeese. If you hit
Why
that
not?
in 100,000 person bracket, you win. You probably get all the other ones wrong.
Because that's what people will say. They'll hear the last part and go, "Oh, well, he has both
True.
these teams," and someone will fill out the bracket.
First round. Yale beats Texas A&M. McNeese beats Clemson.
Okie doke. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. We covered all of your March Madness strategy, from small fields to large fields to different scoring systems, and then we even got some takes out of these people. Right? Me, I'm just I'm rooting for traffic. So I'm rooting for Louisville and Kentucky to get knocked out quickly, so I don't have to deal with any traffic going anywhere. That's fine with me. That's all I'm rooting.
You can get an easy dinner reservation.
Right, makes it easy. Yeah, right. Or I should be doing the other way, where since I go out and play poker all the time, maybe I want them to go further because then more people will go out. I have no idea. I don't know what I'm rooting for. I don't know what I'm rooting against, but I'm rooting for you to subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up button, hit the notification bell to always know when I go live for a special edition of RotoGrinders Today.